This discussion is as old as time. Does quantity hurt quality? Should you have one great A/B test hypothesis to work with and spend a lot of time on it? Or should you have many hypotheses? Which is better? In this CXL Feeds, in this lesson, we'll discuss if quantity hurts quality in your experimentation program. Let's see what Steve Jobs has to say about this.
One of the things that really hurt Apple was after I left, John Sculley got a very serious disease. And that disease, I've seen other people get it too. It's the disease of thinking that a really great idea is 90% of the work. And that if you just tell all these other people, here's this great idea, then of course they can go off and make it happen. And the problem with that is that there's just a tremendous amount of craftsmanship in between a great idea and a great product. And as you evolve that great idea, it changes and grows. It never comes out like it starts.
So Steve Jobs says that there is this disease of thinking that 90% of the work is having the idea. Because in fact, actually, the real work is in after having the idea. Very interesting. Then there is this research that says that more ideas and a quantity of ideas goes hand in hand with quality of ideas. Not only have they found that in their research, but this paper also finds that people who come up with the most ideas also have the best ideas. And then we have another example of the co-founder of Netflix, and he says there is no such a thing as a good idea. Everything is a bad idea, and you just collide it with reality to see what sticks and maybe to see what adapts, like Steve Jobs says. So that's very interesting. And then we also know that we tend to like our own ideas, our own hypotheses, probably better. If we were to value a random house in our street, we will probably value it correctly. But if we need to value our own house, we probably overestimate its value. This is called the endowment effect. And this is probably also at play when, you come up with an idea, you come up with a hypothesis for a test. You probably value that more than another test. Now, back to our own world, back to our experimentation world. What can quality and quantity look like? So this is an example of Bing from the book Experimentation Works. They added 20% more tests, which led to 17% more conversion, which is amazing. Maybe the example is already a little bit outdated, but I'm sure there are more out there. And then if we look to Google's design thinking, they use the double or triple diamond model. In the example here, you see the triple diamond model. And the gist of it is basically that whenever you're in the problem discovery phase, you need to go wide and first collect all the problems before you narrow it down to the most important one. And the same with solutions. So when you come up with solutions, first you come up with a lot of them, maybe a lot of hypotheses, before you narrow it down and you make your testing plan. So before you actually kill off ideas, let's assume everything is a bad idea and that they just have to be evolved before it becomes a great idea. The way to do that is to just let all the hypotheses exist, and then in a second phase do prioritization. In a second phase do MDE calculations, create a test plan, create a hypothesis, make sure what it is you want to measure is you are able to measure, and make a test plan. Honestly, the most effective tool of figuring out if you have a lot of ideas, if you have a quantity of hypotheses, if you want to figure out where to start, the best tool is actually prioritization. And in experimentation, the most important and different thing in prioritization is pre-validation. And with pre-validation, I mean that we score hypotheses better if they are based on UX research, if they are based on other types of research, or if they are based on data, if they are based maybe on other experiments. So those experiments will kind of have this pre-validation and will end up at the top of your list, next to experiments that are easy and quick to make, next to experiments that will be exposed to a lot of people. So it will be easy to measure an effect. One prioritization model is PXL, but there are many out there. And the bigger experimentation programs actually are more into even evidence-based prioritization. So when you talk about quantity and quality of ideas, you actually would try to come up with a lot of ideas. What you'll notice is that you will have, small iterations like text changes. But you also have, on the other hand, like big innovative ideas that's going to cost you way too much development resources. You will have ideas and hypotheses based on data and information and research. And you also have ideas that come from expert opinion and are just leaps of faith. And you will have ideas that maybe everyone shares within your team, and you will have ideas maybe that only one person shares or believes in. If you come up with a quantity of hypotheses, actually what will happen is it will become just a broader range with different things. Now, how do you actually do that? How do you come up with more hypotheses? What I want you to do is force yourself to do this little exercise. So even if you have one idea or one hypothesis that you want to work on with your team, you can always turn that into a lot more variants, a lot more A/B tests. If you just ask yourself, can we make it bigger or smaller, for example? Think about social proof. You want to add social proof to your website because you think it will be beneficial and helpful to people when making their decision, and you expect your conversion rate to go up. So you want to implement social proof. The biggest solution for that you can come up with is probably like implementing it on every page, on the top of the page, those kind of things. Of course, you can also make it smaller. You could just implement it on one page or below the fold. So within this hypothesis, you can already come up with multiple variations or multiple tests. You can also push yourself to think about what is the opposite of this test. Maybe the opposite is removing social proof from your website. And removing social proof from your website might be a very easy test and might be very easy to run, maybe to set up in one click. And then you will see if that has a positive impact, a negative impact or not. You can make it more aggressive, your test or your hypothesis. You can make it blinking, red, whatever, colorful. Of course, there are more ways to think about aggressive solutions. And then there is subtle solutions. Can you make your hypothesis more subtle? So this is a really great practice if you're working with stakeholders that are a little bit like, we don't want to, or we already know, no, we don't. Well, you know how it goes. You can always try to make tests more subtle, make it smaller, make it less visible, make it run maybe for a different period or for a smaller data sets if you still have the right sample. So that's also a great practice. So you can ask yourself all these questions, and in the end, you're going to come up with much more variants, much more tests, and probably all around the same topic. Then an overlooked tactic that you can use is, wait, I'm not going to explain it just yet. I'm going to show you an example. So YouTube found out that 5 to 10% of their videos was uploaded upside down. And it took a while for them to figure out why that was. And it took a while because they needed a minority, a left-handed person, to figure out why that was happening. Imagine you hold your phone like this, and then you twist it like this, you upload it, the video is great. Left-handed people hold their phone like this and twist it like this. And what happens is the video gets uploaded upside down. So it took someone different to figure out what was going on and to come up with the actual solution for it. We know from research, there's research about bricks. So people sit in front of a brick and they are asked, like, what can you do with this brick? Come up with creative ways to use this brick. And then we see that diverse groups of people come up with more innovative uses. So how do you use diversity? Because there is probably diversity in your organization. You're probably not all by yourself. How do you use that for experimentation and to come up with a quantity of ideas? You can help introverts or maybe junior people or maybe people that just don't speak up to speak up with silent brainstorms, which is basically giving everyone 5 minutes to brainstorm by themselves, come up with solutions or think about problems without any social involvement. So just 5 quiet minutes. That's one solution, right? Or give people just a place, a person to go to if they have an idea. It can be an online forum. Things like that. Then the second point is listen to other teams. And that sounds very broad. It is. Sorry about that. But what you have to do is go to other teams, their stand-up, Ask what their goals are this quarter and try to help them with experimentation and try to empower them with experimentation. And next to that, you want to connect with people, and that again sounds like a very broad cliche thing, but I think most people by now have, if they are into UX research and experimentation, most people already try to connect with customer service. And they probably know, especially if you're working in a big corporate, you probably know the number one complaint this month. You can still go there and sit down next to a person and ask them like, hey, what do you think should be changed on the website? And that can be very interesting. Next to that, we also have other teams very different from us. Think about the legal team that maybe this quarter came to you and said like, hey, we have to implement this set of rules and just put this text on our website in our checkout, and it needs to be this big, really big, and go fix it. And instead of having this one-way street, can you connect with them? They probably, maybe not, but it could be they're very different than you, right? Maybe they wear suits and maybe you're more like a sneakers kind of person. But try to connect with them and try to work on solutions and problems together and, force yourself to ideate outside the box like we just did with the questions. Can we make it more subtle? Can we make it more user-friendly? Those kind of questions. To ideate better, use these two tactics. Ideate more and try to ideate outside the box by asking yourself or your team questions. And next to that, leverage the diversity in your organizations, in your teams, to come up with a higher quantity and a broader range of hypotheses. Thanks so much. My name is Lucia van der Brink. I'm founder of Increased Conversion Rates, and I'm also founder of Women in Experimentation, the community on Slack.